Here today.
Very last night, sure.
I didn't see all of us.
You said Matt's not gonna be here tonight?
We have three missing.
Yeah.
Thank you for the special.
Okay. I'd like to call this planning commission meeting, regular meeting, Wednesday, April 23rd, 2025 in the community, is this the community, in the community room? Roll call?
Freed,
Here.
Meridian,
Here.
Moss,
Here.
Newman,
Here.
Robson,
Here.
Wilmot.
Here.
Okay. Approval of minutes for March 19th, 2025. Any comments, corrections? I'll take a motion to approve.
I move that we approve the minutes.
All right, I second.
Okay, Charlie made the motion, Max made the second, all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Minutes are approved, 6-0. All right. Oh, you know what, I'd like to amend the agenda. We have someone here who would like to make a public comment, but rather than making them sit through the whole meeting, I'd like to move that forward to number 3. Public comment, is everybody okay with that? Well,
As long as there's nobody on Zoom to rather do it late.
okay, and we still will do the one at the end. So, all right. Alex?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm opening up public comments, so it's,
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Alexander Peacock. I'm the chef and owner of Peacock Culinary Experiences. I have a food truck at Fletch's. I built the food truck with the intention of serving those who have celiac and gluten intolerance. I noticed that when I moved up here from to Northern Michigan from Miami, there is no options for gluten-free. We're the only gluten-free, certified gluten-free establishment in all of Northern Michigan. And what we're doing, no one else is doing, the whole state of Michigan. We are certified by the National Celiac Association, so we don't have any cross-contamination. But I wanted to make a comment. I got a violation yesterday. I got, my lights were flashing. I had signage out and I also had an igloo. I understand the flashing lights, so I corrected them. It's kind of like a hazard for driving. The igloo, I understand, it's kind of an auxiliary structure. The thing I didn't understand was the signage. I understand maybe A-frame signs aren't allowed in certain portions of the city, but to my understanding, I couldn't have any signs near my food truck. I wasn't planning on putting on the sidewalk, just near my food truck, on my food truck. But I wanted to ask if some of these ordinances could be eased up a little bit. All I wanted to do was have a gluten-free sign so people know where to go for safe eating. There's a large portion of this community that can't go out to eat. Absolutely cannot go out to eat, 100%. So people, I've only been open for 2 weeks, but I'm having people come to us that haven't eaten out in 6 years, 7 years, thanking us for being around and doing this. And right after they thank me, they say, you need a sign or something. People need to know you're here. We're all over social media. You know, we're doing a good job at social media, but there's a large portion of people that aren't on social media. Summer's coming, you know, the population goes from, I think we're at 5,000 or 6,000 right now, all the way up to, I don't know, I'm guessing 25,000 or 30,000. But people need, I want people to know where we are. I'm not doing it to say I have the best food or I have this or that. I'm doing it because I'm serving those who don't have the opportunity to go out and eat like all the rest of us. Celiac is a disease, it's a disability, and I want to be able to provide a service to these people that they don't have here in Michigan. So when people drive by, I've only had to sign up for 2 days until I got the violation. I've had so many people come by and say, you're gluten-free, you're certified gluten-free, all gluten-free. I want to eat here. In 2 days, I've had probably 20 people do that. Without the sign, no one knows, no one can do it. So I'm not asking for a rule change. I'm not asking for a blanket rule change. I'm just asking maybe for like a case-by-case basis for signage for food trucks, or a case-by-case basis to, I don't know, amend some of these, I think they're tough restrictions, but I'm just asking for a case-by-case basis for maybe the administrator or a supervisor from the zoning administration to use, common sense and, yes or no, approval, disapproval, instead of having a blanket and say, no, you can't, you can't do this, it's against the rules.
Was this a sign that was away from your truck? Was it like a half block away or?
It was, well, in honesty, I did have the A-frame sign on the sidewalk, which I understand I cannot do that. I realized after the fact, but I can't have the sign, from my understanding, I can't even have the sign. I would like it by my tire, facing the road, just by my tire, there's a serving window right by the tire. That's what I would like, but I was told I can't have that. And that's why I want to have a case-by-case basis saying, I'm not gonna have, this is the best food ever, just 100% gluten-free approved. So when people know, they know I'm a safe kitchen. They know they can come here and eat without throwing up. Many people eat with me, I hear horror stories about them going to all these places, thinking that they say, oh yeah, we're gluten-free. Any restaurant can say they're gluten-free. But if you're celiac and you go there and you say gluten-free and they start throwing up, that's a problem. There's no risk of that with us, but I want to be able to, not only social media, but I want people passing by, because we're in a really good spot. We're in Fletch's parking lot. It's a very, very good spot. And I just want people to know that we're a safe kitchen and they can eat with us. I don't want any violations, and I don't want to do anything against code or against ordinance.
Is it Fletch's parking lot in back by where the car wash is, or out in front?
It's on the corner of Greenwood and Charlevoix, so it's
Right across the street from Burger King.
yes, exactly, right across the street from
Oh,
Burger King. So like right there.
Yeah, okay. Well, how does our sign ordinance treat, a mobile establishment? Is there any specific, delineation for?
Well, every other food truck in town has their menu and other signage by the window attached to their trucks
And so if you had.
on private
If
property.
you had any signage on your truck, it would be okay.
I'm guessing it would be, but I don't know.
A truck or trailer, in his case, he has a trailer,
Mm.
so yes. The sandwich board sign is what he has, and they're not allowed in the B3B district. That's where the issue lies. It's not with
Okay, so
signage. He could-
potentially you could put the information on the truck
truck.
itself, or on the trailer itself, right?
Yeah, it's already wrapped. We're thinking magnets, but the magnets can't stick because it's a certain type of metal. I have a generator out front, and I can take the sign off and make it a non-A-frame sign. And I can put it like, I have my trailer, and then I have a generator right here. I can put it on top of the generator. I just didn't know if that was okay.
Well, I
So
think
it's
probably-
not
I could hook it onto the truck, but that was kind of janky.
It's not something you want to put on the trailer in a permanent fashion.
I mean, I could put it on very top, but it's very, very windy anywhere here in northern Michigan. And again, I think the igloo is a good idea, because the igloo started kind of flying away. So that's, it's good. That's out of the equation, but I could stick it somewhere on the truck, but it just doesn't look nice. My truck, I'm going for luxury, I'm going for elegance, I'm going for gourmet, and I don't want a cheap sign on my truck. It looks out of place. Something
Well,
like
maybe
that.
it could be done in a tasteful way on the trailer.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I can put it on top, of the generator cover, and I can fashion it that way.
Yeah, I don't know your setup at all, but it seems like there.
Rick,
could
are
be-
you referring to the sandwich board sign that he has, or are you talking about like a vinyl?
Yeah, just
sign or
some,
something
yeah,
that you
just
put
some
on?
kind of signage that would be mounted on the trailer so that it would meet the sign ordinance
Mhm.
requirements.
Yeah, I could mount a sign,
Even
non-A-frame.
lettering added on top of the wrap.
Yeah,
You could do that quite tastefully, but Tony gave the citation
No, I sent the notice of violation.
violation.
And it was just to notify of the violations. Temporary signage would be allowed.
So are there recommendations that you have for how he can do this?
I had recommended a magnet, or like I just said, a vinyl cling of some sort that he could put on the trailer specifically. on his menus. I mean, there's a multitude of options.
I have
Um,
gluten free in the
but
middle. I have,
get
I'm
on
sorry.
the ground, or a separate sign from his,
Yeah,
Regular.
but you want to attract more attention to that concept.
Yeah, not so much truck attention for me, but I want people to know that we're there. Gluten free, 100% certified, National Sea Lake Association. What I want, and I have it on my menu already. I put my menu out, like we change our menu every 2 or 3 days. I have it on the menu. But I wanted it so when people drive, because people drive by and they're like, oh, cool food truck, and they stop and they're like, I didn't know this was gluten free. Oh my God, you need to put a sign out there. I'm like, tell me about it, you know? And that's why I actually bought this sign. Didn't look at the coding, that was my fault. I bought the A-frame sign, and I should have done that, looked at the code, but,
You said it's different for temporary? Did you say?
he could do a temporary sign. Temporary signs, 2 signs, 17 days and 120-day period is what's allowed.
Yeah, that wouldn't help them. All right, well, I
It would help.
comments are limited to 5 minutes or less. So, I think if you come up with ideas, run them by the zoning administrator and she'll let you know if that works or not.
okay.
So, hope we can figure it out.
Okay,
Good luck with your business.
Yes.
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you very
Got
much.
some pretty good press.
right.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Somebody wants to make a comment now? Okay. So we have someone online. Janet?
Yeah,
Shannon,
my name is Janann Cornstalk. I am the director of the Waters Life Festival. We do the festival every Labor Day weekend down at the lakefront there. This will be I think our 3rd year with the city of Petoskey here. It is amazing to be able to work with the city of Petoskey. They've made everything, all the accommodations and everything, and we've sat down with the city after every event to go over whether or not, you know, what we kind of did well and some things that we need to change, etc. So I wanted to come to the planning commission and to find out where you are with the transit business license. And I'm hoping that there will be some positive changes there. And I always like to work within the parameters or work with an entity or whatever that I'm working with, whether it's a city or, you know, somebody else like that. So, and looking over our registration, we register people for our event. It's totally free. I raise all the money through grants and, you know, different business areas. The college donates to us, like several different businesses in the area who work at the Chamber of Commerce, the downtown board, etc., to try to get the word out so that I don't know if you remember the Festival by the Bay. They don't do that anymore. I don't know why they folded or whatever, but we want to bring lots of people to the area. It's a celebration of water. You know, in that building sitting right there, you have a beautiful view of the bay there. So we really want to bring people to the area for them to really enjoy Emmet County, Petoskey, etc. So that's part of our goal for doing that. But in the past, we've had a hard time with like getting vendors to be able to come and to vend at our event. And Sarah Beckett and other folks with the city have been very gracious in working with us. But there's a couple things that created a hardship. One was like the $1,000 deposit. The other thing was the fingerprinting, the background check. And then I just got contacted by Wagbo Farm. They tried to go and to fill out an application. They were asking me if something had to be notarized. So these are not vendors that have $5,000 paintings. You know, many of them are selling handcrafted native things. We have a lot of NGOs that come and want to set up. So those types of things on your, I do have a copy of your application here. So I just wanted to give some, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Janet, we don't handle that. That's a different department. Where would she go for that?
That's in the city ordinance. It's not in the zoning ordinance.
Yeah, we are in charge of the zoning ordinance, and that has nothing to do with what you're trying to do. So,
Oh, okay. I thought it was.
so you would deal with the city clerk,
Okay.
Sarah Beck.
That is at the city council meeting.
Yeah, yes. City council, and you could talk to Sarah Beck. directly anytime during office
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah, okay. Well, I also wanted to come and to support Alexander Peacock because he is new to the area and he just supported our Earth Day event yesterday, brought some bread and some different things over there. So super glad that he is available. I do have a friend that does have gluten-free issues and she went and tasted some of his food and is like, she said it's amazing. I don't have gluten-free problems, so, but in support of him, I told him that I would show up. I was going to ride my bike over there, and then it's like almost raining outside. So, but anyways, whatever I can do. And I am asking him to be a vendor at the Waters Life Festival this year as well. So I'm hoping that, you know, we could be supportive of him and being successful in his business and, you know, all of those things and further the I don't know, the mission vision statement of the city and have people come here and enjoy food and those types of things. So another great attraction for the city of Petoskey. So thanks. I did not know which meeting to go to, so
Right.
maybe it is planning and
No, not planning.
well, so anyways, but yeah, I hope you all can make it to the Waters Life Festival Labor Day weekend and we'll be working with the city and the Chamber of Commerce again and other folks in the area. So
Right.
so much
Thank you,
for your
Janet.
time, and thank you for all the work that you all do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there another hand raised?
Yep, there is.
Okay. All right, is this Sean? Sean, you're up next.
Hi. I'm just trying to see. For some reason, it doesn't look like my camera is working for some reason, so I apologize for that. I wanted to just say a couple of things. Number one, this relates to the Peacock food truck. Certainly happy to see new entrepreneurs make their way into Petoskey. I am one myself. I own the Grove Beverage Cafe at 446 East Mitchell Street, the former Penny Safe location there on the corner of Waukezu and East Mitchell. I do, agree. I would like to see at least a little bit of relaxing of sign ordinances in some way, shape, or form. I too am kind of victim of that in so much as the way that my building is set back. The only place I am allowed to put my sandwich board sign is basically in the dirt between two rows of bushes, and they are completely not visible to the public unless they're walking right by. It's particularly difficult on my end of the street. As you know, there are a number of vacant spaces down there. And so it's really, really difficult for me. And yet I can see other businesses that don't seem to have to follow those same guidelines. I mean, an example being Quiet Moose on the corner. They've got their sandwich board on the sidewalk more than 6 feet from their entrance, and yet they're allowed to do that. But I'm told that no, that I can't do that. In fact, when I tried to put it out on the sidewalk initially, I was given a notice that I would be in violation and would face a fine. So I think that those rules, those regulations need to be, just clarified, and so everyone is, on the same playing field here. And so, if Mr. Peacock or something comes forward with a proposal on how to relax some of those restrictions, I just wanted to be, made sure that brick and mortars are thought about as well, so that we aren't coming up with a system that gives food trucks, an unfair advantage. And one of my points bringing up, and I don't know if this is the right venue for that, is it relates to outdoor seating with these food trucks. As a brick and mortar, my outdoor seating is dictated by our occupancy levels according to the state of Michigan. So in my business, due to square footage and having one bathroom, I am allotted 25 as my max occupancy. Any outdoor seating counts against that according to the state of Michigan. So when I put a 4-top table outside, if that 4-top is occupied, my indoor occupancy now drops to 21. And so, and it's not just Mr. Peacock's food truck, but also the Tyler's Tacos, which is up by Sunset Park. He puts out like 6 or 8 picnic tables there. as a food truck, they have no occupancy. So I find it kind of unfair that, that we as brick and mortars have to abide by these regulations. I have to have certain things in place for restrooms, plumbing, et cetera, all of these things. And yet they can just willy-nilly put up as much seating as they want. So again, that's one of those things where I think it just needs to be a level playing field. So that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
All right, let's get back to our regular meeting. So item number 4, public hearing. This is a special condition use request for a childcare center at 403 Maskey Street, case number 57-25. Done?
In your packet, I prepared a staff review of the application. The applicant was at the previous planning commission meeting and went through conceptually what they were talking about relative to the conversion of the former church into a child care center. They submitted their application materials, public notice was given in the paper, and folks property owners within 300 feet. We analyzed the site plan based on performance standards in the ordinance. They satisfy almost all. One of the ones that we picked out or pointed out was that there was nothing talked about in the application about trash storage, where that's going to be located on the site, how it's going to be handled. And really the most, and the signage wasn't provided. That'll have to be submitted separately to the zoning administrator for review. And I think the one critical component out of the entire application was the fact that the alley is not in a condition to handle the amount of traffic that would be using the child care center. In fact, the alley is unimproved. It's also a dead end, so it's not like you can travel one way down the alley and get out the other direction. So circulation on the site is an issue. Commissioner Wilmot's got an option maybe to solve that. But that's really the one thing that I saw in the application was the circulation behind the building, with the fact that the alley is a dead end alley and it's unimproved. And then we also pointed out that there's a lack of lighting back there in the parking lot. So you have trash, lighting, circulation are issues. Stormwater was reviewed by the city engineering department. They're recommending using the existing stormwater system. There's issues across the street with the Marathon, and then further across the street with Royal Tire. Royal Tire being Eagle identified UST and contaminated sites. So their concern was they don't want any subsurface stormwater drainage flowing in that direction, so they prefer to use the existing stormwater system to capture and remove.
What would that require?
Just the water draining off into the curb system, into the catch basin, and into the public.
So just grading of the existing parking lot?
No, stormwater is working there now. It's not changing it.
So they comply.
Well, the current stormwater ordinance that the city has is that the stormwater has to be captured and handled on site, which means that if it's done that way, you're going to have subsurface flow towards the lake, which will pass through these contaminated properties. So the engineering department, their recommendation is to use the existing system in this case.
So continue to be non-conforming.
Continue to be
Despite the fact that there's a change in use.
Exactly, primarily because of the location.
Does that require us to do anything?
Just to recognize that it's part of the staff report. That in a nutshell, it's a pretty simple case, but there are some trash, lighting, circulation, 3 issues that we noted.
The circulation. What I noticed upon revisiting the facility is that the alley is not just undeveloped, it's very narrow.
Very, yeah, one
It's
car.
one car. It's really a one-way alley.
Correct.
And to change that would require a major investment in the moving of utilities and an encroachment on their property because you couldn't encroach on the neighbor's property.
Correct.
And that would reduce the number of parking spaces. So that's why I made the suggestion that I made in terms of circulation, which would be better for the parking as well as potentially drop off if they did any child drop off. So I don't know how the city would view an additional curb cut there, but just a thought.
Okay. Do you have something brief you want to say?
Yeah, bro. We did, and I apologize for the lateness of that. We submitted an amended one-page drawing late last week that addressed the garbage and the lighting, did not address the circulation issue. So I just noted that we were gonna, our plan would be to use 2 rolling trash cans, if we go back, what are those, 96 gallon, I think they are, 2 of those and not a dumpster. On the site that would allow us to not have that garbage truck coming, we could roll it out the street ourselves or whatever, just put the garbage truck come in. And then on the lighting, we put a couple of sign of light locations. In the middle, it says interior down facing lights. On the drop off comments, thanks for bringing those. We share a lot of the same concerns. I think the big thing for us, and you guys can approve this however you, I mean, it's your planning, which we want to run something that's safe. We haven't completely figured out like the staging of when people are going to be coming and going. It's really going to be that's kind of the next step. We're going to get into more details with operations of how this would run. And we may stagger drop-offs between the front door and the back door, which would eliminate a lot of, traffic coming in and out of the alley. They may be staggered at times of the day where you have these 5 people are allowed to drop off in this 15-minute period, and then these 5 people in the next 15-minute period. We really have to kind of gauge, and a lot of that's going to come down to surveying in the next couple months, surveying employers in the area and the people that live in the neighborhood to see, what hours are people working? Because we haven't really figured out exactly the hours that we're going to be running this yet. What we do know is that there's a need for affordable childcare, and there's a big need for affordable childcare that includes an academic and training component that we know. We know this is a great location for it, and we have Megan who is experienced operator. Those boxes we check. We also know it's going to take probably 9 months to get licensed with the state. So this isn't something that can open up next week. Not going to take 9 months to do the renovations. So we have a cushion of a couple of months. Assuming you guys approve this, we go forward with it. We've got a cushion. We can probably run through most of the summer, or we will be working on trying to figure out a lot of the answers to your question. We share the same. We don't want to have an unsafe drop-off area. If you guys. What I was hoping is if you guys just say what you had said in there, pave the alley through your property. I get that. We're not going to have an alley that's not paved. You guys say that. We wouldn't want that, because we would be coming to you asking to pave the alley, because it's going to be a mess if we don't, unless we end up dropping everybody off in the front, in the front. But I don't think that's going to probably be the case. Mm-hmm. And then we would just, we'll figure out this. You can have our word that we're not going to run something that's unsafe out there. That's causing a lot of problems. But I can't tell you exactly how many cars. I love the idea you've proposed. Your name is Charles. I love, Charles, your idea. I think it's cool. That might be the right answer. We need to evaluate, we'd have to meet with the DPW and make sure that would work from a grade, because there's a kind of a steep hill there coming off the street. We'd make sure that would work from a grade perspective and stuff like that. I would prefer, if it's okay with you guys, that you just we'll trust that we'll make this work, and we're going to come back to you if we feel like we need a curb cut. We're not going to do something that's, crappy that, people can't get in now. That's not going to help us run. No, if people can't drop their kids off well, they're not going to come to the daycare, right? That's part of we understand that. And we're at least that first half of the property width and out to the street needs to be paved. I don't know if it needs to be paved the whole width, but at least needs to be paved the first.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
yeah, all right.
If we had everything nailed down completely with our drop-off plan, we can get it, you know, designing something different. We're just not there all the way yet.
Well, it's, Charles and I was talking before the meeting, he dropped people off at a daycare, children off at daycare, and they came out and picked them up, they took them out of the car. My experience of dropping grandchildren off is we had to go in, we had to sign in to make sure it was, you know, the right parents, so we parked and took the kids in. So that may also make a difference in what until you get to that operational.
Yeah, what do you think, Megan's gonna work better?
I think staff wise and ideally what would be best would be for us to have them come inside. Because if we have a specific person doing the drop offs, then that messes with our ratios inside and affects our staffing plan. And not that we want to run on a skeleton crew, but we also have to keep labor in check. So I think maybe there could be drop off times, and if that's the plan and your hope to have some child out of the car. I've never worked in it. I'm on my 13th year working in childcare, and I've never worked at a place that had a drop off. I've always had the parents come inside.
This was a big security issue too, because we had it, my children dropped off most of the time. When we were taking care of the kids, I mean, they had to have a special code, and I mean, it was because of security issues too. We'll probably get down in the weeds, but it's, probably how we're gonna use it, because that may make a difference.
Yeah, there's a good chance we're gonna go with the time drop-off situation to try to alleviate. You can't have 25 people getting dropped off at the same 5-minute window. That's just not gonna work. This property will never support that, no matter how complicated of a drop-off plan we come up with.
And we do have the option too, the front door would lead right into our preschool classroom, and then the back door will lead right into our infant toddler, the combined classroom or just toddler, and then infants could potentially be downstairs, depending on which route we go. But we do have the opportunity to have preschool parents are dropping off in the front, and in the back would be the infant toddler. So splitting it up and having those designated locations would be an option as well.
Okay, I'd like to open this up for the public hearing. Is there any public that wishes to speak? And state your name and address. And your comment, and please limit comments to 5 minutes. Okay, it doesn't appear there's any public comment. So at 6:32 p.m. I open and close the public comment. Public hearing. Thank you, Rick. All right, so let's bring it back to the planning commission and we'll go through our performance standards. I'm just gonna go through them quickly. A, building and accessory uses. That is satisfied. Does anybody have any comments about it? Moving on to ingress and egress, probably there might be issues if they went with that new system. But right now it's not applicable with the way they have it set up.
Well, I disagree.
Okay.
The fact that there's only a one-way access to the back parking lot is an issue.
Yes, but that'll be a different, this is just saying if they satisfied it or they didn't, then we'll get on to the site standards. Which are the next page, the A through F.
You can only say that was either partially satisfied or unsatisfied, like other options, like other things.
As opposed to not applicable.
Well, the standard for the site plan is that there would be a curb cut proposed. And there's no curb cut being proposed, at least in their plan. And it needs to be reviewed by public safety or public works, and if it's on state highway.
So until that's done, they don't satisfy this requirement.
Well, it's not applicable because it's not a matter of satisfying or not satisfying. It's just, it's not there.
The ingress and egress that you're thinking about and that I want to talk about, I think is covered under the parking.
Okay. Yeah. All right, landscaping and buffering is satisfied. Lighting is partially satisfied, and I guess I would ask you, they're adding 2 lights, is that adequate?
we'd have to take, when we get down to, when they come in, if it gets approved and they file their zoning permit, we'd like to see what kind of lights they're gonna put in.
Okay,
There's really no model specified.
all right, natural and historic features, there really isn't any issues about that, so that's satisfied. Parking, parking is an issue, and we will get to that in the standards. Sidewalk, that,
You're gonna postpone that discussion to the.
yeah, when we go to standards for review. All right, sidewalks, they don't have any. Nope. So, not applicable. Signage, you know too, that you'll be submitting that when you come up with signage.
Could we back up to sidewalks? Because it occurred to me that, you know, one of our goals as a commission has been to try to, you know, have sidewalks built around the city where there are no sidewalks currently. And with this use going in here, would it be advantageous to somehow try to get sidewalks installed on this property as a part of this development to try to satisfy the need, you know, for complete sidewalks around the city?
Except there's no place to put them.
Well, I don't know, is there,
On angles, you could put them, but you've got a grade that you got to deal with. It's gonna be problematic.
yeah, and that's probably why it's never been installed.
That is why.
Yeah,
It's a steep grade there.
right,
And you have sidewalks across the street.
but
But and also,
in other places, they have done, you know, retaining walls and things to be able to install sidewalks in locations that don't have them. It was just a thought I had.
but generally, when we do sidewalks, we do it when we're doing street repair. So,
That's true too, yeah.
yeah, so I don't know, it's not something you can require of the applicant. So it has to be the city,
Well, you could, but it's definitely it's a grade issue.
right?
And there's no sidewalks along that side of Ingles the whole way, primarily because of topography.
Right.
So I mean, I guess as long as drop off and pickup and staff coming and going can be satisfied in other ways, then we're okay.
All right, just trash storage has been addressed, so I would say if you're satisfied,
Yeah, that's fine.
it's satisfied.
They didn't have to do it.
So that has been corrected. And the utilities are satisfied, and we understand the stormwater is an issue, we want to protect it, so it's gonna go through the city. All right, standards for review. The special land use type shall be located on a site of adequate size and appropriate location to make it feasible for this particular use to be compatible with surrounding land uses. It exists and it's been compatible. The special land use shall be designed and located in order to protect, accommodate, and enhance natural and man-made features of the site's such as topography, vegetation, soils, etc. It involves a conversion of an existing church to a child care facility and doesn't compromise scenic views, historic structures, or natural features. The special land use shall be located on a site that can accommodate on-site traffic circulation and vehicle storage needs for the particular use. So this is where we discussed that. Parking requirements for childcare facility exceed the number of parking spaces on site. As a result, the applicant has permission of Cordes Flynn to use up to 4 parking spaces. And it's within the 300-foot parameter. The alley pavement surface may require repaving or replacement of service and circulation needs of the childcare facility. So, yeah, Rick.
Relative to that question and vehicle storage needs. My question has to do with, does your architect or do you have an engineer that's going to be developing a site plan that shows, or a parking plan that shows the circulation? Because when I kind of scale off based on the size of the parking space, when I kind of scale off how this works or what the size of your existing lot is and what you have left when you build your addition there on the end of the building, you know, it looks like you could have a double loaded corridor that goes with a drive running east and west, but and basically have 20 feet, 2 or 3 20-foot sections, 20, 20, and 20, or 20, 22, and 20 would fit in a north-south dimension running east-west. But then how would you access that drive, or how do you envision dividing up the lot so that a drive comes in and then parking is off of that drive.
Last month, they submitted a parking plan.
Oh, that's. Oh,
And
my apologies. Where is it?
There's on the sides.
Would you like to see it?
I did bring last month, let me see. My apologies, okay, there it is, my apologies.
But it only has access from the alley. And this was the layout that I was working from to make it an alternative suggestion.
Okay.
The city looked at that layout and determined that it was.
We don't have a dimension site plan. It's,
Okay.
it's laid out on an aerial photograph and. But the way that we calculated the parking was based on the spaces that they had submitted. That's where we came up with the deficiency and the need for 4, so.
Okay.
Well, also on the memo for tonight's, it said that they had only 15 instead of 16, but this one shows 16
Are you counting
spaces.
where the drive exists currently as a parking
No,
space?
there are 16 spaces on this.
Because there's a drive off of Ingalls currently.
There's an alley off of Angle. No,
There's a drive into the parking lot and then there's the alley.
no. I was there today. There's no drive,
Yeah, it's only the alley entrance.
only the alley. You can see it on this art area too.
Okay.
And those add up to 16, not 15.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure isn't there a
The reason
driveway?
why-
No.
the reason why-
Not, okay.
It's really, that's what I'm saying about, and I like your recommendation, but that is really steep out there.
No, it's right.
Yeah, but it's only this one.
Yeah, but if you angle it up.
It may work.
Yeah.
We need to get it designed.
Look, I'm not insisting on it. I'm just
Well, no, I'm just saying,
throwing it out there.
we just have to get it designed.
The one space that is adjacent to the proposed vestibule right here
Yes.
is not functional because of the circulation. There's no way you could park a car there. So that's why we counted it as 15, not 16.
Okay.
So we did take.
And that was one of the 2 spaces I was taking away for access.
Yeah, it just didn't work.
So you're not getting counted for that space anyway.
All right. Can we move on?
Yep.
The special land use and its accessory uses and structures shall be located and arranged on the site in a manner allowing for adequate buffering, screening. And this is an existing building site and it has buffering and screening and landscaping. The scale, bulk and elevation, this is an existing building, so we don't have to consider that. And then this F, the special land use should not be located where due to particular equipment or storage or production, but they don't do any of that, so that also doesn't qualify. So the biggest consideration is parking. 23 spaces are required. There's 15 spaces counted on the parking site. And it's recommended that we approve 5 on the street parking spaces, which is in the front of the church. And reduce the number of shared parking spaces 4 to 3. That's the recommendation. And then in terms of circulation, the alley is a dirt alley that dead ends. The alley is only wide enough to accommodate 1 vehicle. Circulation will be impaired. To manage this, alley needs to be reconstructed in concrete or asphalt. Recommended that drop off and pickup times be staged to reduce congestion. All right. So our biggest concern is parking and circulation. So we can move on to a motion. And then we can discuss. Rick?
I was gonna ask about D, but we don't know more about that, or that's for the playground area?
They show where the fence is going on this new additional info site plan that we got.
Or be Paul.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that we have I think that we want to do the motion to approve with conditions, so that it's all written out. So if somebody would like to.
I think the motion to approve the conditions, I'd like to see, there be something about circulation, I mean, reconstruction of the alley or parking lot, or give them a little more room to develop your site plan such that if they want to use Charlie's suggestion, or if their engineers come up with a better one, but somewhere the word circulation or traffic circulation. Other than that, I could, do a motion to approve it.
I would suggest
Yeah,
that you add, don't add to B, but maybe add a J,
okay,
and on J that the applicant needs to submit to the city their final circulation plan.
right,
For review.
help to have that in there, yeah.
Who would review that?
Would be reviewed administratively by the planning and by the DPW.
Okay. So we would,
Final parking and circulation plan.
Yeah,
so just make sure I understand what, you guys can put whatever you want. I want to make sure I understand it. So if we may have, if we do a Vegas thing and drop off in the front versus in the back, that's gonna impact, you know, how this functions exactly. So kind of what you're saying is we would submit a plan, if there's amendment, if there's changes that need to be made to, you know, add like Charlie's recommending, if we put, added a driveway, obviously that has to get approval. So anything we're gonna change, but this is gonna clearly say the alley needs to be reworked. And then basically from there, it's like, figure out how we're gonna stage the kids, and then come to you guys and let you know, hey, here's our plan to do this in a safe way. And you're like, okay, sounds good, but it's gonna be on us to figure out, you know, ultimately we have to figure out how to make it safe. Because like I said, no one's gonna, our ability to run this business profitably is, or not, you know, at all, like even be able to cover the cost reasonably is gonna be somewhat contingent on people being able to drop their children off in a safe manner, right? That's to our benefit just as much as it is to you.
Yeah, and I think out of the entire scope of your project and your application, I think the thing that is somewhat concerning is the issue of circulation.
Sure.
That'll cause, if it's not handled appropriately, that's gonna cause the greatest concern from the neighbors
Yeah,
in the future,
yeah,
contacting City Hall saying,
yeah.
you know, this is
What's going on here?
what's going on here. So,
Yeah, there are 5 or 6 residences down that alley that use that alley.
well, I drove down the alley when I did my site review. And when I got down at the end of the alley, it's very hard to even turn around and come out of the alley.
For sure it is.
Yeah, one time we thought about trying to use that as a one-way street, and we're like, that ain't happening.
That ain't happening, no.
It's interesting that this church was able to run that for all those years. It's interesting. That's the only access they had.
Yeah.
I thank you guys for being like flexible on this. I'll tell you, we'll come up with something in the next couple of months. It's really gonna be contingent on how we stagger the drop off time, you know, what needs to be done. So thanks for giving us the ability to, I mean, we want to do something that's reasonable and that's also, you know, as much money as we can spend on, you know, we want to have a safe drop off and all that stuff. We want to be able to, we want to do, and I appreciate even the stormwater, the fact that we're going to be able to use the existing city system. I mean, that's dollars that's going to be spent on renovating the inside of that building. You know what I mean? And not that we want to have a bad drop off location. I totally understand. I'm not trying to downplay that, but believe me, as I've been looking at this thing, and I told you guys this last month, I've done a lot of business plans in my life. This is the least profitable one I've ever done in my life. I mean, daycare is we're not doing this because this is a business that's like, no one's retiring on this thing. It's something to help the community out. So anything you guys can, thank you for being gracious and just letting us work through it.
Can I ask a question about the parking? So we have 5 spaces in the front. Are we able to put up a sign that says like preschool drop off only during these hours?
No, those are city parking spaces.
Okay, so we're just counting those, but we can't like claim them.
Well, there's 5
Okay.
spaces on city property between the street and 8. There's 8 in that lot.
And we're able to-
As we discussed last month, I mean, I asked Randy Flynn since the last meeting and he said, I watch those spaces out there all the time. The only time there's ever anybody in there is when I have an all hands meeting.
But our hands are tied on that.
But your hands are tied, right,
20%.
right. You guys can't give us those spaces. Yeah.
Cynthia,
So you don't need it.
I don't understand the need for letter G on here.
Well, it's just saying, right now,
What's wrong with it?
Because
Just
we-
leaving it at 4.
because we don't need 24, we need 23.
So,
You may still need that depending on what the final.
I like where you're going with this, Charlie. If you could delete that one,
Keep it at 4.
and then they're giving
And then it
us
would
the
just be
4,
reduced.
that would give us some flexibility if we want to do something like that design. Maybe
want
throw
it
one more
to-
space
well,
out.
if the circulation reduces the amount of parking that they have on site, 4 is the maximum they can have.
Uh-huh.
But we could say, shared parking with Cortez Flynn not to exceed 4 spaces and total parking not to exceed 23 spaces.
Okay,
And then that way you're covering what their maximum allowed to share is plus the maximum requirement for parking.
And that works mathematically if you only counted 15 in the back lot.
Yeah,
Correct.
That's correct, okay? Because if they do take, have that extra driveway, they would take the space that you're not counting plus the space next to it in order to have access, which would then require all 4 spaces at the insurance company.
Correct. And that's why I'm saying you could say that shared parking with Cortez Flynn not to exceed 4 spaces.
I think that's
And total
excellent. I
parking
think
not
that's excellent,
to
but
come to
are they restricted? They can't do 5?
No.
Why not?
Cortez Flynn gave us
One second,
permission
one
for
second.
4.
What?
Because Cortez Flynn cannot reduce their required parking by more than 25%.
So it's what they can't do.
They can't do it, right?
By the way, just for informational purposes, you may recall that the Scoobies parking lots are not city parking lots, are city parking spaces. Those are Scoobies.
they're city.
No,
parking
those are city
spaces.
parking
that's city,
spaces.
yeah.
That is.
Those are all
Yeah,
city
on
parking
Ingalls,
spaces.
along
They are.
Ingalls.
That conversation came up with the medical marijuana. No,
Yeah,
what Scooby said is they maintain them and they clear the snow from them, but they are city parking spaces.
They're in the right of way.
Yeah.
And,
So you want to change G to reduce the Cortez Flynn shared parking not to exceed 4 spaces and the total not to exceed 23.
So not
yeah.
reduce, but
So we're not gonna
allow.
do, we're gonna say, we're gonna delete, reduce the, and simply say courthouse
Cortez Flynn.
shared parking not to exceed 4 spaces and total parking not to exceed 23 spaces.
I'd like to add a condition in there.
Sure.
Signage that says no parking in the alley. Because they can't.
The city's not gonna allow that anyway, but if you want to put it in there, it's fine.
I mean,
Well,
Well, that's gonna be up to the city.
because I can, you know, parents dropping off their kids, it could be a problem, just.
That would be up to Public Works.
Yeah,
Okay.
so if there's complaints about it, Public Works will hear about it. I don't think it belongs to their motion. Although you say, put it in if you want it.
I think it'll be handled, it'll be handled internally. I don't,
Did you want to add about, under the lights? You said it, the lighting, you want more information for lights.
that's a good one. Yes, please. Let's put that as,
That's E, isn't it?
put that as
Yeah,
K.
free, right.
So,
That's already E.
Yeah.
Is that
Additional lights will be installed.
well,
He just needs
yeah,
additional words in here.
but it doesn't say that you want the,
Fine, use the
plan,
final
the
light
site
plan
plan.
to be approved by
Yeah.
staff.
Just add final plan to be reviewed by staff.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's important that there be a more detailed site plan developed that shows the parking and circulation, you know. This aerial view with the concept of it dropped on is good. But I think to know for sure that it's gonna work, you're gonna need to develop it in more detail.
Yeah, we were trying to do this was done internally by the construction
Right.
company. So we'll have an engineer did the stormwater calculations, but we didn't actually hire out a survey yet, but we'll have to
Yeah,
obviously.
until you know that that it's gonna move ahead, you don't wanna make that expenditure, I
We
understand.
went and counted out the number of spaces in the existing parking lot, and there are 16. And then we've laid it out, adding that little vestibule and figured we could keep 15 or 16.
Well, I don't know how you can get in and out of there and have people coming and going and still maintain 16. You can't.
No, you
There's
can't.
gotta be some kind of
Yeah.
ingress and egress from the alley or from Ingle Street. to be able to
Yeah,
park on.
we get our staggering plan done.
On B,
Okay, I'd like to bring it back to the planning commission.
Yes.
All right,
on B, I'm a little bit concerned, the reference to making it wider, the width. That's impossible.
No, reconstruction of the alley
To the width.
to the width of the subject property, so I want
Oh, okay, sorry.
with the.
I thought it was to the width of city standards.
No.
To the length of. the
Language of that
property,
was-
What's the alley?
I apologize.
Yeah.
should we say length instead of width?
Well, I looked at it as, this is length, this is width.
Okay.
Whatever you.
Yep, no, that's good. All right, anything else about this motion that needs
I have
to be?
one question. Can you, you said John's already addressed.
Yeah,
So that could be.
I guess, yeah, I mean, he addressed I, which is, he said they're gonna use,
Two rolling.
two rolling.
Oh, right,
So you can take I out.
so J becomes I.
And to be honest, if they institute the staggered drop, that all depends on the circulation and parking plan.
Yeah.
So it may not be necessary,
May not, but that's-
you may not have to insist on staggered times.
I don't think they're gonna be able to make it work unless they have staggered times.
Okay.
We'll see that.
Yeah.
So can we look at the motion that was typed? And what changes we have now?
Yeah, the changes that you have now that I have, under E, we'd add a sentence saying, final lighting plan to be reviewed by staff. Under G, get rid of reduce the, and just say Cortez Flynn shared parking will not exceed, not to exceed, shall not exceed 4 spaces, and the total parking shall not exceed 23 spaces. We're gonna get rid of, strike out I. And J is gonna become I, and that's gonna be the final parking and circulation plan shall be submitted to the city for review.
I re-propose that motion.
What he said.
What he said.
Lisa, do you want this read for the record? To read it out loud?
I'm okay with what's here if you guys are, unless you want to,
Okay.
or John prefers at least.
Do you have the paperwork where you've seen the,
He's got it on his
Motion.
lap.
okay,
I'm gonna take the motion.
so I would take a second for this.
I support the motion.
Rick, so Albert made the motion, Rick seconded, any more discussion? All right, roll call.
Reed. Meridian.
Aye.
Moss.
Aye.
Newman.
Yes.
Robson.
Aye.
Wilmot.
Yes.
All right, so, yes, you have some work to do.
Okay. Can you give me the language if you bring in I didn't write that down.
I was,
Your new I.
knew I was that you would submit a final parking and circulation plan to the city for review.
Shall be submitted to the city for review.
Shall be submitted to the city.
Yeah, when it's a shall, there's no wiggling out of it. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you guys for, like I said, thanks for working with us on this thing.
Yeah, just, if you're moving through, keep us in the loop through Lisa.
Yeah. Well, I'd say at least in the next 30 days or so, we'll get a set of drawings to you. And I'll come back to you guys if there's any problems we run into, you know, this isn't gonna work, I'll come back to you guys and, you know, let you know. You guys are
Contact Lisa.
nice group to work with, so.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Have a good night.
All right. Bye.
And thanks for letting my son sit with me.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He was.
Yeah. It was good education.
Take care.
Yeah.
Moving on to old business 5A, consideration of the special condition use. 5B, consider ordinance amendment allowing below grade residential uses in the B2 Central Business District. We got a revised one. Did everybody get the revised copy? So we have the full chart That's the complete chart, right? There's that.
Complete.
Yeah, so. it's the
Typo and
complete
all.
chart.
That,
Typo and all,
whatever.
in the headline.
You know, this is, H needs to be gotten rid of.
I'll use.
Usage.
Uses, yeah.
Some days that's how you wind up talking.
All right. You wanna say anything?
The new revised version that was sent out earlier, I mean, this last couple of days, yesterday. Was based on a conversation between Lisa, Amy and myself. Relative to trying to clean up the ordinance. We have downtown businesses that are operating at lower levels. I could probably think of a half a dozen at least.
Mhm.
And according to Lisa, according to the city attorney, they're prohibited. So then it puts me in a dilemma. Well, do I start filing citations against these people to close their businesses? And we're not gonna do that. I can't say that they're non-conforming because they would only be non-conforming if they were in use prior to 1976. No, that's not the case. Maybe a couple of them, but not all of them. So over the years, they've been allowed to creep into the lower levels without any review, without any zoning permit. So we've established precedent already. So we just need to clean the ordinance up to reflect that we do allow retail, restaurants, health facilities, professional offices probably down the lower levels. Now, I had an interesting thing today. I just happened to go into the Huntington downtown branch to do some banking, and I walk in and I just looked and I kind of laughed. On my right-hand side, the offices on the right-hand side are at grade, first floor. The offices or the teller stations on the left-hand side are all below grade because they have the windows up there and you can see the cars parked. So you have a building that technically is first floor, but part of it's below grade. So this is gonna kind of clean these situations up based on what's going on. So we've added the commercial and I've added civic. The reason why I've added civic is because the Civic 3 has a lower level. So like I said, we've got buildings that are, and it's appropriate. They should be able to use their lower levels.
Yeah,
If, as long as they conform to building and fire codes, I don't know why we would prevent somebody from
Right.
using their lower level.
right,
So this just kind of cleans it up.
good.
So those are my questions. Did you get feedback from DMB?
Yeah.
So,
I
did
do have-
Did Amy
Amy,
bring it up with any?
she did, she brought it up to them. They haven't. I can't remember the conversation in the emails back and forth. She did mention it to them,
Mhm.
but they didn't have the final draft that's gonna be subject to public hearing to review, to give us a comment, and I asked her that we would like a written correspondence from them relative to what their position is, which should be very interesting because they represent the downtown property owners that are operating on a lower levels.
Mhm.
Have they no documentation that addresses this issue of any kind?
They,
Existing, yeah, has the DMB weighed in on this issue of lower level retail?
I've asked them to.
No, I understand you've asked them to, but they haven't, the existing businesses didn't go to the DMB for permission or anything like that.
No, not that I know.
Yeah, we'd probably just be pulling a building permit with the building department.
No.
You know, we can do.
Well, that's an interesting question. If they pull a permit at the building department, don't they have to come to you too?
Not all the time.
When would they?
They
have
would
to
for
come to
this,
you?
for a change of use, if it's currently storage and they change it into a retail space or something like that. In more recent years, the county has been very good at communicating with the city when they get a building permit and it's questionable. They will reach out and ask if a zoning permit is required. If they're doing exterior windows, doors, roofing, that sort of thing, those things, we don't do anything with zoning, but change of use or occupancy of space, that sort of thing.
I'm really surprised that it's not lower level, hasn't always been, I mean, said I spent my first 23 years here. I used to go down to Blacksburg Pennies and buy my Boy Scout stuff. And at Ward's, you went down to, which is now the condemned building, you went down there for all the hardware and tools, and upstairs to all the clothes. So historically, you've been allowed to.
Look at Myers Hardware.
Yeah, that, I mean, so it's interesting that this has never come forward at all. And this came forward first though for housing upstairs, right? And that's still part of this.
Right.
Co-living.
Co-living.
Well, and
For all
also,
we know, something could have been eliminated from the ordinance and unintentionally
Right.
at some point in time too, that
Right.
removed it from,
Somebody
when
did
this
run-
chart came about, maybe it didn't
somebody did run
make
that.
the cut.
okay,
Well, what action would you like us to take on it? Just to pass it on to the,
No, we have,
as part of the larger zoning ordinance?
no, I think we wanna move it along. I mean, if you're comfortable with the red lines, then what we need to do is schedule a public hearing for the meeting in May, and then have a formal public hearing on it.
Okay, I have one other question. This came to thought because of living in a college town for 40 years. And people would buy a house and have one of their children in it and then have 6 others living there. And that became an issue where they defined how many, and I think we have this somewhere in the ordinance. I know that I found that, it's in section 201. A family is one person or 2 or more persons related by blood, marriage, legal adoption, foster care, etc., or a group not exceeding 4 unrelated persons. Would that 4 unrelated persons apply for cohabitation down? It seems like that's a good idea. Not to allow them to do 16 people now. I mean, I'm not being away, but that standard of how many unrelated people can live in a dwelling. There's a reason for that to be there, is to prevent, somebody having way too many roommates, kind of thing. So I don't know if that needs to be applied in here.
Well, keep in mind, this is a special condition use.
Okay.
So if, they wouldn't be issued an occupancy permit under normal circumstances by the county, would they?
Not
They
if it's a-
converted it into a living space?
It's a special use. They can't get a zoning permit unless they come before the planning commission.
Well, exactly, but I was just thinking, it's the county that issues a
Building permit.
but a capacity,
Yeah.
an occupancy permit.
Yes, yes.
And so they're the ones that have the rules of how many people can stuff into a space.
Right.
but Petoskey has specific
our own.
rules.
We have
our own, and at this
Our own
time,
occupancy permit?
our own occupancy requirements or
No,
limitations.
for unrelated.
So that should. that
Which
be
he just
part-
read.
Right. So as long as 201, it applies here. It doesn't need to be there, but otherwise that co-living, I would like something about.
Well,
The same difference.
the definition would apply to the co-living
As
space.
long as that's what I wanted to be clear.
What if it's square foot dependent and you have an occupancy of, say, 20? I mean, our households of 1 is more than 40%, but our median household income is $37,000. I would assume that these would be subdivided into a series of different units and everybody would be not related.
That's true. So that's, yeah.
So
I know, that's what I'm wondering, it is for,
Or that's either way.
Make it worth it.
it's not like. I
Well,
don't
4 would
think-
be in a single unit.
right, but how would
They'd
that
have
work
more
with
than-
co-living
Oh,
spaces?
a co-living space, you'd have a kitchen, a central kitchen, a central living room, and then you would have 4 bedrooms. And that would be your 4.
Right.
And you'd have 4 people that were unrelated,
Right.
that were living in it.
Right.
So you think 4 is a good limit?
Well, that's what we currently have in the ordinance right now.
And that's why I just want to make sure it's fine.
I mean,
It does say, you put it in here, involves a private bedroom.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
infers a private bedroom for each individual
Yeah.
living there.
yeah, we don't, I mean, if it becomes an issue in the future, then we can always take a look at changing that number. We could actually take a look at changing that number as we're going through writing the new code.
Mhm. Cause it seems reasonable to me if you had 4, I mean, you could have 4 couples. Sherry.
Well, see, the other part is you may bump into,
Oh, well, that's true.
in our ordinance, the state statute would trump our ordinance. For example, if you have a group home that's licensed by the state, they could have 6, 8 bedrooms that share common facilities. But that's licensed by the state and they wouldn't have to apply to our 4. But you may wanna take a look at that provision. So, but I'm glad you brought it up right now. Right now, they'd have to, the co-living would have to be limited to 4.
You said somebody came to propose this. Was that their intent?
Mhm.
4 was what
I
they
think they
wanted?
had 3 or 4 at the most. Wasn't many.
Okay.
It wasn't many.
Well, all right, so they're not asking
No, they're.
for it at this point,
No,
but it is something we could look
no.
at.
You can look at it.
So I move that we put this forward for public hearing at our next meeting.
Somebody other can second. All right. So Charlie makes the motion. Rich makes the second. All in favor? Aye. All right. So now we have zoning ordinance updates. And John, I'm gonna give that to you.
Well, hopefully at the May meeting, we'll have 2 or 3 articles for the planning commission to review. We're just not there yet. We're almost finished with the 3rd one. That's what we're currently working on. Then once the PC gives us your feedback, then we take it back to the committee, make any last minute changes. And then we send those over to the city attorney. She's already got a few of the articles that she's reviewing already. I think I'm hoping by late May, early June, we have a special meeting of the planning commission to start taking a look at the district. Because I think I didn't bring my spreadsheet, but we're almost down to the last 2 or 3 articles, which is Article 3 and 4. Yeah, there you go. Charlie, I have an update. That's it there.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there it is.
Well, this has not been updated.
I've already updated, I didn't bring.
So before you get to May, for the very few people here that aren't in attendance at those regular meetings, since our last PC meeting, on the 19th of March, we've had 3 separate zoning meetings, each of them 2 hours in duration. And during the first one, we finished the article that doesn't die, Article 5. Has that been subsequently sent to the city attorney?
No.
That
That
would be the
hasn't
next
even gone
step.
to the PC yet.
Oh, okay. And then we began review of Article 7, which is supplementary uses, which went through a second 2-hour meeting and had a final review on April 17th in our 3rd meeting. That should be ready for the planning commission now too. So there's 2 articles. And then we completed a review in 1 meeting only of Article 9, special use, because it's only 2 pages. So that should be ready for the planning commission. And then we began a review of Article 6, which is another one that won't die. It's a long one and it's very detailed.
Those are the 4 that I'd like to get to the PC in May.
That's going to be a challenge to get, because we only have 1 more meeting scheduled between now and the May PC.
Then it's gonna be June then.
Yeah. I'd like to do it in May too, but I don't see how we can stuff it in. Because that's got parking in it.
Yeah.
Parking's gonna be fun. So on May 8th is our next meeting, to which those of you that are not on the committee are certainly invited. Albert is always faithful. And we'll continue Article 6. That would leave Article 2, zoning districts and map. Article 3, regulated uses, and Article 14, definitions as the remaining sections to do. I would presume that we'll try to do definitions in committee.
Yes.
But Articles 2 and 3, zoning districts and maps, and regulated uses, Article 3, we intend to do full PC line by line, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that may take more than 1 PC meeting.
No, what I'm getting at for the special meeting of the PC is to get through the kind of the broader policy issues
And feedback.
and feedback, and then we'll go back and then try to pull that together and then come back to the PC with something, with something to really sink their teeth into. But at the May meeting, we could definitely, I mean, I wanted all four, but at the May meeting, we could bring in Article 5, 7, and 9.
Yes.
And then Article 6, hopefully maybe by the June meeting, July.
That seems reasonable.
That's the last big article is 6.
Article 5, I went back and checked, took us 7 meetings,
Yes. It did.
okay?
Yeah.
Starting in December. There had been some discussion about joint feedback meetings with city council and or DMB, but I presume that's not on the radar anymore. Is that
No.
correct?
No, Shane and I talked about it. We thought that the format that we used previously, where I go in and give them a PowerPoint to update them on what articles have been revised and give them a synopsis. He felt that was more comprehensive, more easy to communicate exactly the status than having a joint session. So I told the mayor, I'm hopeful I can attend their second meeting in May, first meeting in June, to give them another PowerPoint on the articles that we've accomplished today.
Looking a little bit further down the road, maybe premature. The planning commission will ultimately vote on and presumably recommend an entire new zoning code
Totally new.
for referral to city council.
Correct.
And that will require a public hearing at the planning commission level before it goes to the city council.
That's correct.
Is there any justification and or ability to engage the public more than just the public hearing of the final document
Yes.
between now and then? And how would you
We would engage the public when we have an idea of what the new zoning districts are gonna be.
And what does that look like or sound like? Or what, is it a meeting of some kind, a
Public
special,
open house.
a public open house?
Yeah, where we
Okay.
have the maps and people can see the existing zoning, the proposed zoning, what the uses would be.
And this would be before the planning commission votes to forward it to the city council?
Before the planning commission public hearing, you want community input before you get to the
Okay,
stage.
that sounds good to me. I just wanted to.
I'm thinking that would probably be in July, maybe August.
You're an ambitious guy.
My goal is to have this thing, hopefully it can be wrapped up by the end of the year.
Well, that I totally agree with.
But, you know, I
The
think.
sooner we have fewer meetings, the happier I'll be.
I think we could think about having the open house probably in July. You know, while people are here in town. You know, I don't want to do it in the winter when people
And
leave.
presumably we'll make available the draft going before the planning commission in its final entirety in advance of that open house, so that people can see the context of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they can pretty much see anything they want now. We publish
I know they can, but it's bits and pieces right now.
It is,
It's gonna be a different animal when it's in,
that's correct. New book.
yeah, the New Testament. That addresses my question.
All right, moving on.
Early, and if you want, I can arrange that playing an Aiken for you to have the book signed.
Probably not gonna be a bestseller.
All right, so moving on to, number 7, public comment. So this is an opportunity for the public to comment on items not on the meeting agenda. Any public comments?
Oh, that's from earlier. Nothing.
Okay. Commissioner comments. Albert.
So I think I have pretty good handle on the process of the zoning committee. So these articles, at what point do we as a commission vote on an individual article being presented to the city council.
We don't present individual articles, they're gonna get the
The
whole.
whole thing, okay, all right. I just gonna reiterate what I've said before. And, tonight was an interesting, statement, and I don't know that we need to go back and, you know, strike through everything in our existing code for that. Because I know we're going to a new code, and we don't have to do it legally or whatever. But I'm really concerned, and this may have what happened with the Montgomery Ward and J.C. Penney's basement. Somebody changed the code and left something out. I'm worried about both our errors of omission and errors of commission, and I'm gonna have a hard time voting for supporting articles without some summary of changes that are significant from the old code. Oh, I mean, I think we owe that to the public, we owe that to each other. I don't know where, you guys haven't been to all the committee meetings, I've been to most of the committee meetings. I understand what you're doing, and a lot of it makes perfect sense, and there's very few parts of it I'm questioning or not supportive. But I really want to make sure that we do our due diligence. And for example, tonight, 1717B, word for word. Special land use shall be designated and located in order to protect, accommodate, enhance, or accommodate, enhance man-made features of the site, such as topography, vegetation, water features, historical structures, and scenic views. I don't think I've seen scenic views in our Article 9. I'm not sure, I know we talked about historic structures, but we gotta, if we're changing things like that that are gonna be meaningful to our citizens, I'm gonna have a hard time voting without, I'm not asking for a strike through of every little item, but if we take something out that might be important to our citizens, I think it's important that we have, here's Article 5, here's what it says, this is a new article, this is why there are all these things. These are 5 or 6 or 7 important changes in Article 5 that we think the public should be aware of. I
Well,
think you're gonna.
John's presentation to city council pretty much captures that, right, John? But if we're missing a word from the existing, or a phrase from the existing ordinance, it doesn't capture that, and I don't have any idea how to identify that. Other than a comparison, somebody
Right.
finds it and compares it.
What I often
How
do,
else are we gonna find?
I often go through before your meetings, pull up the Word document, pull up the new article, and search for words that are important. I know that's all, I mean, that's my own volunteer, that's my commitment to the, when I got on here, I told John I was gonna serve the citizens of Petoskey. That's my goal, to serve the citizens of Petoskey. And I think by development and improving the city and making it easy to develop is important, but it's also important that the citizens know what we're changing.
What are you proposing?
I'm proposing that when you complete an article, that there's some summary of significant changes. Not red line through everything, because like you said, it's almost impossible because Article 5 is not Article 5 in the old code, and 1717 doesn't exist in the new code, but.
Well, again, I think that his summaries does that
Okay.
from a high level view, but if you're talking about view shed, those words, that wouldn't be in that kind of a general summary. If you're talking about being concerned about dropping a word or a phrase
Right.
or I don't know how we identify that.
Well, weren't we talking that at some point there was going to be some kind of follow-up study that related to views?
It was discussed at one point, but I think it was dropped along the way too.
No, we said that at some point, the planning commission needed to do a more detailed study on view sheds because.
No, on the view sheds, but I'm just talking about the comparison of the documents. Isn't that what you're talking about?
Oh, I
Or
was talking about.
view sheds alone?
And then I just brought up view shed, but there's parking, whatever, the 20, if we decide, and it might be a right decision, so now it's 20%. you know, you could have 20% on street. If we decide, well, geez, we just saw this issue, we're gonna go to 30% on street. Well, that's a change. You know, we have, in the original article of the SDUs, 600 square feet. John's changes to 360, which I think is because that's the Emmett County building code minimum. And so that's fine, but I think the people need to understand that's why we did it. Not that we just kind of went with a template or whatever. You know, I think that's.
Well, again, his review captures the big part of that. But what you're talking about is a document by side by side review of the documents, and I don't know how to accomplish that.
Well, I think once you get the full document, the full new document done,
Yeah,
you can always search the existing and the proposed
that's what,
on a PDF.
right.
So you just pick out a phrase or a word
Right.
and see if it picks up or not. I mean,
So-
But who's going to do that? Who are you proposing that does that? The citizens?
I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, I just think, I,
I mean, I'll put together, I want to put together like an executive summary, of what the major changes.
Oh, absolutely. You've been doing that.
I have been, but we'll do it as part of the submission to city council. But yeah, and I think we should all chip in on it.
right, I think that if you have, as commissioners, if we go through different issues, whether it be parking, whether it be occupancy, whether it be how many, what quadplexes, triplexes or whatever.
I mean, it's nothing that we haven't heard before, but Lisa and I, we had a meeting today with a developer type person on a piece of property. And he had the zoning code and he said to Lisa, he said, I have such a hard time finding stuff in this code.
Now, mind you, when I sent him the link, he's like, oh, I'll do all the work. I know how to look at an ordinance. I know how to read an ordinance. I've got it.
Yeah.
And this is the part I really appreciate. I mean, I'm not yet, and it keeps getting pushed down the list with storm damage this year. I thought for sure this summer I was gonna do a storage building. Well, now I have storm damage to take care of. But how many parts of the zoning code I went to, and then I still called Lisa and said, what's my setback? Because I can't understand which one of these applies to me. So that part of it, making the zoning code easy to read, I'm all for. I'm not trying to be a naysayer here. I just want to be careful about that. The other comment I had, and John pointed it out, and I think it's important it was very important for me, and I really appreciate John, is at the last time when Matt and I were here, I did something that was inappropriate.
No, he did.
Well, no, it's somewhat inappropriate. Maybe not inappropriate, but not as strong as, I wouldn't have done it if I'd been schooled better. Is that when they were there, it said, childcare, we need it. And if we could have had a public hearing here, and we could have had 6 homeowners that would have changed their whole mind about this. And I was on the other side of that 2 years ago. I walked in this meeting and really figured that you guys had already decided to change the height in B3A. I really did. I mean, that was my sense. It was already a done deal. And no matter what we said, because I didn't understand the process. So I appreciate you pointing out that we need to be neutral in these presentations. I also think your suggestion of getting the whole thing, not having a pre-hearing hearing,
Right.
is something that we really need to discuss, because if these guys would have walked in tonight and we would have found all kinds of things, reason that they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
They might have already bought the property, and I think that's very important for me, that was very important. I really appreciate it.
Well,
John,
but that's part of the ordinance we talked about.
oh, yeah, exactly.
Making sure that Lisa has to determine that the application's complete even before it comes to you guys.
Right.
So we're not getting caught in that, where people come here and say, hey, do you think this is a good idea? And then we gotta get away from that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, it works best when everybody
One
sees it at
small
the same
commissioner
time.
comment on new technology. I don't know if they see more than we do on their view.
They see that view right there.
They can choose what
Missing.
They can pick what they want.
Pardon?
They can pick their view.
But they can't see everybody at the table is what I'm talking about.
I know because these tables got moved.
So they all need to be, that was my
They'd be
comment.
fixed.
Everything has to be moved this way to get in the field of vision.
No, they just have to be moved in. And they were fixed, but someone rearranged them, so
Might be able to change the lens too.
you
or-
can't. This is it.
No, we
But
gotta.
we
just-
have it,
we gotta-
we
we
had
gotta
it,
squeeze
it's
the
just-
tables.
Somebody else came in here and moved them, so,
Just.
yeah.
But I'm glad we're back in here because we can work with our papers and we'll see each other.
I kind of like the kids' table.
I never got the kids' table.
Staff.
All right, Commissioner, no, okay, updates?
Staff here.
So no updates. I just have a question. I had sent out an email to everybody. I've heard back from a couple of you on the training option from Planizen, if that's something you're interested in. The planning commission training is more of a brand new planning commissioner type training, and it's actually more expensive than the annual membership to Planizen, this group subscription. I know it's one course versus 350 courses available.
What's the plan is in for the group?
It's the cost is per person.
What is it?
She gave me a breakdown. If it's 5 or more individuals, I think it's like 225. It was what it winds up being
Well,
per
that's pretty
member.
reasonable because I have.
But is that for the whole?
That's for 1 year,
Essentials.
and you can use any of
All-
those that are on there.
all-
350 plus
plus
trainings that they have on there, all pre-recorded, so you can do them at your own leisure. You do get credits for them. And then, you know, I know Rick had asked, is this something we would do as a group? I know historically that was something we did many moons ago. And, you know, that's something if, you know, John felt.
Well, I just didn't know how that,
Something that
that
could be done.
particular system works.
Plan is it?
It's each individual and
Yeah.
yet we can all do a training if we wanted to together.
Yeah.
You know, whatever works for you.
I'm telling you, I subscribe professionally to it just to get my credits. Their library is incredible. I mean, you know, we were talking about parking. They have like 4 or 5 really top-notch experts talk about the pros and cons of off-street parking. They talk about, I know Ted's not here, but at the zoning committee, Ted's already starting to research illumination and exterior lighting. They have 3 or 4 really good modules on how to really address exterior lighting, especially if you want to be a dark sky community. So that's a pretty reasonable price.
So what you're proposing, you said 5 or more, it was 200
Like 225 person.
per person.
Per person.
And you get a 1 year, so it'll start whenever, and we just sign up as a group. I'll sign everybody up as a group. The city would pay for it. And that would be, you know, a tool that each of you can use and on your own time to do your continuing
They're
education.
about an hour each.
And some of them are less, some are 30 minutes, some are a little longer.
Well, my concentration is going to be on the one that you've already signed me up for, but it sounds like a great tool for the future, so.
Absolutely, and that's something that,
So they have
And
the
then we-
zoning essentials, but there's like 5 classes. of
so
zoning
the
essentials.
planning one that you had initially is not in there.
Mhm.
She said if somebody wanted to do it, we can always add that, excuse me, add that for members. So if we get a new member and we wanted them to go through that, we can add them to it. And they can do that. It would be a reduced rate for that
Okay.
addition, but those are not specifically like, here's your planning commissioner training
Mhm.
in that library. But that's something
But they
we
can
could do
provide
through
it.
that, correct?
Okay, because I would like everybody to have the essentials. Get
And I
that.
think most everybody's done it. I don't know if you have, Mac.
I have not.
And you haven't either,
I
okay.
don't know that,
Bob, I think he did it when he was here before, but I mean, it's Carolyn.
the swinging,
Yes,
Going mad.
yeah. So
yeah, I think
we
he did
have
his
to-
early on, because he's been on for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, I need 24 CEUs by August, so I'm sure.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, if, I guess just let me know, and then once I know who all wants to do it, I don't want to obviously spend the money if it's not something you're willing to
No,
participate
I will
with.
say the plan is in, you do have to pay attention because in order to get your certificate, they have like a 10 or 15 question test that you have to take and you gotta get 80%. And then it auto generates your certificate so you can download it. If you want to submit it like the MSUE for credits. So most of the modules do have a short test. Not difficult, as long as you listen to the video, you should be able to pass the exam.
Didn't somebody mention at the zoning committee that you can, if you wanna get the MSU, get a pre-sign for that? I don't,
Extension, MSU extension.
there was a way to use the plans then to get the MSU or not? Was I missing?
No, that was just MSU Extension had put out a flyer, I think it was, basically saying, providing information for Planison.
But yeah, they're, providing information for Planison?
I thought that's where you've gotten the information from, was at MSU.
I did
But
give
they
it to
do, but
MSU.
they do collaborate with MSU Extension, and they do have Mary,
Oh, Mary Riley.
Riley, and then, Brad Newman,
Oh, yeah.
and, there's
That's your
another,
son?
there's another
Oh, I'll
gentleman.
be there.
Yeah, so there's 3 different individuals that she rattled off. I knew 2 of the 3, that they work with directly, so there is some Michigan feedback included, and actually they're in some of those training sessions, so, or do those training sessions.
Wonderful.
Did anyone else sign up other than me for the planning, for the association seminars? Okay.
No.
First one's tomorrow night. Tomorrow.
What is this? I haven't been keeping.
Michigan Planning Association has their own series of 7 different seminars on topics relevant to Michigan and our current situation, affordable housing and so forth, and financing, and some of them go they're a broader perspective
Mhm.
of subject matter than we necessarily deal with, but it's all very relevant stuff.
Mhm.
They've already done 2 of them, but they're recorded. You can access them anytime you want if you're registered. And then there's I think a series of 5 more.
The current group is more oriented to the housing question, right?
I'd have to refresh myself on the topics, but housing, affordable housing is one of them for sure. And then integrating into a master plan and just a number of Michigan related subjects. So as I do these, I'll write up a short summary so that I can share with you what was said.
Good. All right. As 7:36, this meeting is adjourned.
Lisa, will you send out the invite?